Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're looking at a traditional knife, a traditional locking folder from Spain. This is the Sevillana. In some countries it's known as the Jerezana. Something like that. I probably pronounced it wrong. Like on the UK stores that sell this, they list it as the Jerezana. But on the knife itself, it says Sevillana. So I'm going to call it the Sevillana for this video. What we've got is sort of a traditional clip point, sort of Bowie style blade, a little bit of a hollow grind. We've got a brass, I got to cover up my eyes so that it can stay focused. It's got brass main bodywork, a steel spring for the spring steel for the back spring and lockup system. And it comes with multiple different materials in this section. This is bullhorn. You can also get it in antler, in olive wood, and some other materials as well. Is it a good knife to actually use as an ODYSEE? No, I don't think so. The steel is fairly low end, actually, let's say very low end. It's 4116 or 1.4116, a German stainless steel. Rockwell hardness is usually around 55. It can go a little bit higher, but most companies make it around 55. So that's the main specs to get you interested. Now let's let YouTube do their thing and have their one commercial break, and then we're going to get to the tabletop to take a good look at this thing. Normally, I review knives that are users. Budget users is primarily what I'm looking at. Now, this knife does fit into the budget category, but it's not so much a user. I decided about a year and a half ago that I want to expand my collection into traditional knives made in, countries where they were made from or came from. Like this is a Spanish knife. It's a traditional Spanish design. I've got a couple German knives already. So let me put out this to you guys. If you live in a country where you have a traditional knife that you think is kind of cool, why not email me at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com, and maybe we can arrange some way to get it to me. If you want to donate a knife, hey, that'd be the best for me, but not necessarily the best for you. But perhaps we can work something out. That would be very much appreciated. That's, again, canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com. This knife, let's do a size comparison. Here's the traditional folding knife that I use for the size comparison. No, it's not a traditional knife. Let's zoom out just a little bit. There we go. And the pivot area, you can't see the pivot pin because it's kind of been, blended in because this is brass. It's actually not that much shorter than the Ontario Rat one, the largest rat. What do we have for the blade? Like I said, we've got that Bowie style of blade. Straight back here in the clip point, the rounded clip point. So a tip that's designed very much for puncturing. And then we've got a hollow grind that doesn't come too high up the body. And then on the flat up there, we've got all the branding. We've got Joker's logo, then the word Joker, their brand name, AB Abacente. I think that might be the city where it's made. I probably pronounced that all wrong. And then it says MO space V 1.4116-Spain, and then Sevillana. So if you look these up on their website, on the Joker website, all it says is that it's a vanadium, molybdenum vanadium steel. What they're actually using is this German 4116, which is a pretty low-end steel. It's got a fair bit of carbon on it, so it's pretty good carbon. It's got only about 0.45 carbon in it. I meant to say it's got a fair bit of chromium in it, 14, 15%. It's pretty good corrosion-resistant stainless steel. Yeah, it's decent for that, but it's not super durable for cutting. The edge retention, durability of the knife's pretty good. The edge retention's not all that great. So that's why I don't really think of it as a user. I would really like to see these traditional companies upgrade to better steels, even if they go to 440C, which has been around for over 50 years, but back then, 50 years ago, 440C was a super premium steel, but I'd like to see the Rockwell on their knives. That's only one factor, but the Rockwell to be, 59, 58, 60, something around there. And then people would actually buy these to use. I guess some people do anyways, but there you go. There's no sharpener's trial to speak of here. And you can tell when they sharpened it, they nicked the ricasso right here a little bit on this side and a fair bit on this side right there. So I could put a sharpener's trowel in there if I wanted to, but I'm probably not even going to sharpen this knife because I'm not going to use it. I did use it to test with. It did okay, not that great, and yeah, it did become dull. The handle, let's close this up here. The handle, we've got brass, not bronze, it's brass, and back here you see a piece of metal that starts back here. It goes all the way along the length, and that's the spring steel that holds the locking mechanism together. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the brass goes all the way along the side of the spring steel here and all the way out to the end. And then they put inlay of some material. This is a bullhorn. And like I said in the intro, they've got other materials that they use. Olive wood is the most budget version of this knife. But staghorn, bullhorn, and some other stuff. And that spring steel goes right to the very end where you see that this thing was not kept in very good symmetry when they put it together. Brass is kind of soft, so it bends easily. And so this piece here moved that way. Well, let's hold it like this. This piece here moved down south of the spring steel. And on this side, it stayed nice and close. So what you have is this piece coming further down than this piece. So I'll show you the close-ups of that. It's quite uneven. What I could do to clean that up a little bit is I could take this side down just a little bit. That wouldn't be that hard to do, and I might do that to clean it up a little bit. There is a pin in there. Where's the last pin? Anyhow, three brass pins that go all the way through to hold these inlays in there. And then we get to the head of the knife. It's rounded off at the front. And then we've got this lock. What kind of lock is it? It's a lockback system or a back lock system, depending on who you ask. You can say it either way. On the tang of the blade, you can see the notch that the locking piece goes into. That's very much how modern lockbacks are made as far as the blade is concerned. And then in here, we've got this flap that's used to manipulate the lock. But if you look inside there, it expands and it's a piece with a notch in it, a hole. That hole slides down, and the very end of it, if you can see the end of it back here, the very end of it there goes into this notch, and then the rest of it holds on over the back of it. So let's get it closer to this way. You can imagine what that notch on the blade looks like now, right? And as it slides over, it suddenly gets to the point where the notch fits in there, and you can sort of see it in there. That's how it holds it. So this spring steel pushing down and this manipulating flap, when that's under your thumb, there's no way that lock is coming undone. It was a smart lock system. I think it's a very smart lock system. It's secure, and I did some spine whack testing on this. It didn't come loose at all. It never gave way. It's a very good system. How do you close the knife now? Well, what I do is I push up, and that gets the lock disengaged. And notice how the blade came down just a little bit. So now it's not in that notch anymore. Then I pull this back, and you might be able to see where that is, and then you just push it closed. Now, it doesn't always go all the way closed on its own. See how that tip is sticking out? Because it's just friction here. There's no washers or anything. And there's enough pressure in here that there's no blade play. So you can see the wear lines on the blade, on the tang of the blade. So you have to make sure you push it all the way closed before you put it away. Now, this would be a pocket carry. I wouldn't like to carry something loose like this in my pocket. So what I did was, I went to Smoky Mountain Knife Works and I bought 3 of these. They come in 3 sizes. I think this is the biggest one. And I would just push this way, push the head of the knife into there, and it's all the way protected by this sheath. And now you can drop it into your pocket. This is like $3 or $4 American. Pretty inexpensive. Of course, you can find much more expensive sleeves, but if you're on a tight budget, this is a decent sleeve for knives that don't have lanyards, pocket clips. And this hole that's been punched in here, most sleeves don't have that. That's so you can hook it onto a chain that you hook onto maybe your belt loop. You know, kind of like people do with wallets and traditional round watches. So that would always stick there and hang on, and you wouldn't lose it. And when you want the knife, you just pull the knife out, use it, and when you're done, you close it and you put it back away again. So I'll leave a link for these down below. Smoky Mountain Knife Works doesn't sell to Canada on their website. And now let's go over all the dimensions. 85 grams, 3 ounces on the nose. So it's a nice light knife. The sharpness from the factory was 160 bes, so that's only slightly below average. The cutting edge length is 86.7 millimeters, 3.41 inches. The blade length, so tip to the closest spot on the handle, 89.9 millimeters, 3.54 inches. The blade thickness is 2.2 millimeters, that's 0.0865 of an inch. The blade depth is 20.2 millimeters, that's 0.79 of an inch. The thickness behind the grind, 0.37 millimeters, that's 14.5 thousandths of an inch. So that's why it did do fairly good in my cut test, but it got dull in a hurry. And the grind angles, I left that on a different piece of paper. I'll put it on the screen what the grind angles were on this knife. The handle length is 112.4 millimeters, 4.42 inches. The grip area, it's a little bit over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. Not much, but just a tiny bit over that. The thickness of the handle is 13.1 millimeters. That's 0.516, so just a bit over half an inch. The handle depth within the grip area, 16.3 millimeters. That's 0.64 of an inch. Width on this, when it's closed, is 27.2 millimeters, 1.07 inches. Open length, 203.2 millimeters, which is almost exactly 8 inches. First time I sharpen it, it'll probably be 8 inches because it'll take some steel off the tip. So yeah, it's not a big knife in any way, but it's still a full-length knife, 3.5 inches on the blade, basically. So it's a knife that can be quite useful. I wouldn't use this to try to puncture into things because there's no protection to keep your hand from sliding up over the cutting edge and slicing into your fingers. How much does it cost? I got mine on Amazon.com. They've got no listings for this at all, for any of the handle inlays, any of the sizes. All their listings, it's all currently unavailable. But I'll leave a link for it anyway from there, just in case it becomes available when you're watching this. I'm recording this on September 22nd. It'll come live maybe 24th, 25th. We'll see. So what do I think of this knife? It's a fun traditional knife. It's made well enough to keep. The inlays here are fairly close to the brass. The end here, you can tell they put a little bit of a fill in at the end between the horn and the brass, but it's smooth, so that's nice. I think it looks very interesting and appealing, and it's a decent knife to put into my collection of budget knives from around the world. The cons on it, the symmetry is a little bit off back here. That's a con. There's no easy way to carry it unless you get a sleeve. That's a con for some people who might be looking for a user. And the fairly low-end steel is the biggest con against this knife, in my opinion. I do like that the branding and badging up here is, not super thick and dark, but I kind of hoped that they might put some of the information on one side and some on the other side to keep it sort of smaller all over. But at least this way, there's one side that's totally clean. So you could, store it in a cabinet this side out if you want to. And or this way if you want to leave all the information visible. So I like this knife. Is it worth the price? Not as a user, it isn't. But if you're trying to get a collection of budget knives from around the world, I think it's definitely a good idea. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And no, I couldn't take it apart. It's pinned together. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.